Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're finally going to be fully taming this gold volcano. We also have a lot of construction progress around the colony. We're adding pixel packs behind every fire pole and ladder, because why not add more decor? We also have a problem on the star map. The NX-01 Enterprise made it to orbit of Frostalin. That's the good news. The bad news? Apparently, they don't have enough fuel to be able to land on Frostalin. So once again, we're gonna have to abandon ship. I mean, we even built it a nice little rocket platform here on Frostalin that sadly will not be getting used. Either way, I figure it's high in time that we clean this place up anyways, so we're gonna put a nice proper platform in here, complete with the heat sink and everything else, so I'll be taking care of that in the background. I guess all that's left to do is really abandon the ship and let everybody land here. I'm just trying to make sure that everybody's going to be able to get inside quickly and safely, and I don't see any barriers preventing that. But before we abandon ship, it's probably a good thing to put them in their suits anyways. Well, for the second time in 2 episodes, here we go. Kaplooey. At least we know exactly where it's going to land this time. I think we're actually going to leave the escape pods here too, as sort of a reminder, and then one by one we'll slowly send them back home. It takes about 5 cycles for the teleporter to recharge, but I'm sure they'll be glad to be home. I suppose we also need to build another long-range rocket. Here we go again. But now for finishing this beast. Our plan is somewhat simple. We're going to have the similar steam turbine and conveyor loader setup that we've used in the past, and this time the gold is going to follow this rail all the way down and be dropped off right next to the regular gold volcano. We do have some super coolant in here that we're going to have to deal with, but as long as this naphtha lock holds, we should be okay. So I think we'll start actually by sweeping all this up and breaking into the gold itself. Deconstruct this metal tile. Really hoping this is going to go okay. I mean, what could possibly go wrong this time? The only thing I need to keep an eye on is the gold volcano is only dormant for 12.7 cycles. So I suppose a dupe could come in here while the volcano is erupting and then take a nap in the liquid hot magma. I also want to report a couple of other bugs that I've seen happening on both the colonies. Here's Doritos P. Nothing unusual about Doritos here, except for the fact that they're in the industrial sauna without a suit, despite there being an atmosuit checkpoint here. It's like occasionally they can just run right past it. Now I understand this is a workplace injury, but really, this one's not my fault. This one is all Doritos. They decided to go into the industrial sauna without the suit. I didn't tell them to do that. So I'm not gonna yeah, I guess we should probably reset this, huh? Over on Frostalin, I'm trying to reclaim some of this space debris, but it appears I can't click it. In every tile around it and the tile itself, the debris actually doesn't come up to where I could empty it. Looks like it's time for another restart. I also thought it was interesting that all the dupes came down in one escape pod. That must have been a tight fit considering there's only one chair. And since we're here, I figured I'd give you a slight update on the sleetweed and the bristle blossoms. This saltwater geyser is completely drained and doesn't start back up again for another 46 cycles, which means we're not supplying any fresh water. But all said and done, we got 7.5 tanks full of very cold water for the sleetweed, and then all 10 liquid reservoirs full for the bristle blossoms. Now, I believe these are going to hold their temps pretty well, but we'll have to see. The bigger question is whether or not this is going to be enough water to feed the sleetweed and the bristle blossoms during the dormancy period of this saltwater geyser. And we can figure that out pretty easily. We know that each blossom takes 20 kilos worth of water per cycle. We have 27 blossoms, so that gives us a total of 540 kilos of water per cycle for all the blossoms, which means every buffer tank represents about 10 cycles worth of water. So the bristle blossoms are going to be fine because we could go almost 90 cycles based on how much water we have in reserve. The sleetweeds take the identical amount of 20 kilos per cycle. We only have 26 sleetweeds, so we can estimate again that each buffer tank represents about 10 cycles worth of water for the sleetweed. So finally, after hundreds of cycles, we can consider this 100% complete, even taking into account the dormancy period of the saltwater geyser. Although it does mean eventually the saltwater geyser and its tank is going to get full. But that's not a big deal. I mean, who doesn't mind a little bit of extra water? The gold volcano is coming along nicely. We're going to get all this supercoolant swept up, box it in appropriately, and then lay down a nice layer of water. We are going to put down 2 steam turbines, even though they don't quite fit. But this is okay, and I realize that I failed to mention this on my steam vent tamer video. Not that it's a big deal. The video wasn't necessarily about steam turbines, but using this method, you could actually take advantage of the higher heat coming off of some of those steam vents. Let me show you what I mean. Heading over to the Auction Not Included wiki, there's a nice little chart here that really helps underline this point. When you have all 5 inlets open, the temperature required for maximum power is about 200 C, and you're given 2 kilos a second of water. But when you start covering up some of the inlets, you're going to be lowering that flow rate. So in the steam vent tamer specifically, it allows you to take less steam out at a time, further prolonging the power being produced. Even though when you cover up the inlets, you have to provide it more temperature in order to produce the same amount of power, that's not a big deal for us, considering those standard steam vents go all the way up to 500 degrees. So I am sorry I didn't mention this in the tutorial, but I'm hoping a lot of you get to see this video so that I can sort of close the loop on that. So I suppose with that knowledge, we probably should make this inlet available. I absolutely love the power grid in this colony. Look how close the spine is to these steam turbines. It's going to be super easy to be able to connect them to the grid. John Archer, come on down. You're the next contestant to be sent home. We're almost ready with our gold volcano. Now it's time to drop off just a little bit of water. And I think I'm going to be shooting for about 50 kilos of steam pressure. And you might be wondering how we can drop off the exact amount of water to make sure that happens. Well, in this case, it's just another bit of math. We have 12 tiles here, and we're going to have 21 tiles here, for a total of 33 tiles. When we multiply 33 by 50 kilos, we're given 1,650 kilos. So we know we need to drop off 1,650 kilos worth of water. As standard on this channel, I went overboard on the water just a little bit. We probably have about 2,200 kilos worth of water in here, but it's not a big deal. It just means that we're going to have about 65 kilos worth of steam pressure. Still very happy with it. No dupes have been injured. The project's going well. Going through the last of the checks, the power looks good, and all we have left to do is put a few more insulated tiles down. We are going to have to move this NAFTA lock over just a little bit, just to make sure that we can remove this tile and still keep the lock. Now, the one risky point is when I do put a brick here, is it going to force the carbon dioxide down and overwrite the NAFTA? Once again, we're playing fast and loose, but I guess we're going to see, right? And look at this. It actually worked. The NAFTA lock held. We had a little bit spillover, but that's not a big deal. And we still have 4.5 cycles to spare. Nothing but pro-level gameplay. Well, until I decided to build this tile out of igneous rock and not make it insulated, but look, who's counting the details? So how do we replace this tile? Keeping this lock, because I'm pretty sure if we did this, the moment the tile is destroyed and the insulated tile replaces it, a bunch of gas is going to rush in. Managed to put myself into a pickle this time. Actually, what if we trapped a dupe in here? Okay, I have a plan. What we're going to do is we're going to take John Mann, who is one of our fastest builders, and we're going to lock him in this room without oxygen. There we go. And then we're going to build a couple standard bricks here, and then we're going to ask them kindly to build an insulated tile right here. Except the problem is Lindsay got the errand and not John Mann, and they only have a construction of one, and they're way over here. Will somebody please come build this tile? I can't get John Mann to do it. Will Eric build the tile in time? We don't know. Oh wow, we are really cutting it close here, but the insulated tile is in. We can now deconstruct this one and let John out. Look at that. John's perfectly fine. No dupes were injured in the making of this gold volcano tamer. Well, other than that other episode, but we don't talk about that other episode. We're going to call that one the Bruno episode. And look at us. We're all sealed up. We've maintained our vacuum. Now we just have to wait for the gold volcano to erupt in 3.5 cycles, and voila. This should be good, unless I made a mistake somewhere. Now, we're not going to turn this conveyor loader on quite yet, because we want the gold volcano to erupt and allow that gold to sit into the water for a little bit to heat up the water to create steam. And once that happens, we'll then activate the conveyor loader, which will send the gold all the way around through here to distribute the heat a little bit to get these steam turbines to provide us the maximum amount of power that they can. The gold then travels down through this rail and ends up, as we said before, right next to this gold volcano, where the gold is very backed up, and we have 6.5 tons sitting in front of it. And I just realized why it's backed up. We have the conveyor rail thermo sensor set on 25 degrees. And for some reason, all the supercoolant is sitting at 25 degrees, despite the fact that we're telling this thermo aqua tuner to make it down to 15. Somehow this thermo aqua tuner was set on below instead of above. I can't imagine who would have done that. And just like that, the gold starts flowing again. Amazing. Steel Rover, send Allison on over. So we've already had our first eruption and it raised the temperature of the water by about 10 degrees. So it's gonna be a little while before this gold volcano produces enough of that hot gold to be able to flash this water into steam. And so for this reason, I think I am gonna start taking this gold out as soon as it forms, because when this gold volcano erupts in 12 seconds, all that gold is gonna hit this tile and then average its temp with the 41 degree gold that's already sitting there. So we'll scoop it up, keeping a very close eye on the temperature of the conveyor loader and the auto sweeper, because they're in a vacuum right now, which means they could very easily overheat. So I'm going to keep doing that, making sure we take all of the heat out of the gold before we put it on the rails, just to sort of speed this process up just a little bit. With that cycle complete, we've raised the temperature another 10 degrees. This is going to take a little while. The great thing about this volcano, though, it has a really long activity period at 85 cycles. So what are we doing in the meantime? Well, we're making some other slight upgrades to the colony. Starting with the fact that we don't like standard ladders anymore. We only like plastic ladders. And we have 313 tons worth of plastic to use, so let's do some of that. I'm also removing all unnecessary ladders and starting to fill in some of the blank spaces in the colony with regular tiles. This can help your simulation a little bit, because with no atmosphere here, the simulation doesn't have to figure out the temperature change, the gas change, or anything like that. Now, we won't be able to do this everywhere, but there are some places that it makes sense. Like, what are we ever going to do with this area here? And look at this. We have a steam-filled chamber on our gold volcano tamer. Absolutely glorious. After our last reset, I am now able to access all the rocket debris, so we're going to empty all these, and it will comically give us all the materials back from the NX-01 Enterprise. Coming up in this series, I think it's high in time that we get the duplicants off of barbecue, because up until this point, that is all they've been eating. And I'm trying to decide between surf and turf and frost burgers. They both have disadvantages as far as getting them implemented. The frost burgers are going to require lettuce and frost buns. We're not worried about the frost buns so much because we have sleet wheat coming in spades, and it wouldn't really even impact our berry sludge production. We have 1.5 million calories on this colony and another 150,000 calories worth of berry sludge on our home colony. The issue is going to be the lettuce. We don't have access to waterweed seeds yet. There's none on this colony or on Frostalin, which means we'd have to go searching for some more space lettuce, and about the closest I can find is Aquazon. And while it does have waterweed seeds, there's nobody on Aquazon, nor is there a rocket platform, so this would entice us to get over here and colonize this planetoid. The disadvantage with the surf and turf comes in the fact that you'd need seafood. And Pacu are notoriously buggy, so I definitely wouldn't do an infinite Pacu farm, but we could probably set one up that gave us enough seafood to be able to cook the surf and turf. We also want to get over to Ujito because I want to be able to tap into that tungsten volcano, and we want to get over to Levito as well because it has the niobium. But as it stands, our rockets are still not in ship-shape condition, as they'd rather do all the closer errands here before they'll turn their attention to the rockets. So let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see next. We still have a lot of work we can do in this playthrough, and I'm going to leave that direction up to you. I apologize again for yet another shorter episode, but recording in this playthrough is starting to take longer and longer because of how slow the simulation is running. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say, so until next time, I'll talk to you soon.